All right, we are live. It's that time of the week again for Kane's post-game show, powered by About the Fans. I got everyone knows Petrie from Twitter. Got him joining me today, filling in for Gino. And dude, this game was such a roller coaster for me. Because I wanted to give up halfway through. Tell me if you felt that way as well. Like, just felt like one of those games, man. It was like by halftime, I was like, I think I'm over this game.
Yeah, personally, I was one of the victims of having to watch the end of the baseball game. But by the time the game did really come on,
Yeah,
I think it was 14-7 at that point. But it
yeah,
was one of those games where it was kind of close the entire time, but
yeah,
you never really felt like you were there.
yeah. It was there was something in like I don't know if it was the body language or just whatever, but there was some intangible sense of like we're gonna lose this game no matter how close it was. At least that's how I felt. Uh,
Defeated, yeah.
yeah, but like TVD had a valiant effort this game. Really looked like back to his form from last year. I know he had that pick right at the end. That sequence at the end kind of sucked, man, because really like TVD should have just tucked the ball and ran out of bounds. Would have stopped the clock for sure. Um, and then it probably wouldn't have resulted in the interception the next play. Maybe we would have had a chance to tie or take the lead. But man, other than that, he looked pretty good. Um, had a few drives stall on that 4th and 2 when he got sacked. Jalen Knighton fumbling the ball, and then obviously the missed kick from Andy. But this game, we should have won, but we looked like crap, kind of. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And I'm 100% with you on that completely. Last play of the game, Tyler Van Dyke did throw that interception. I'm not going to say I don't put that on him because he did, in fact, throw that ball. It was the last second attempt. I did think Skinner, I thought he got out of bounds on the play before that. So I kind of thought the clock would
Yeah,
stop. They ended up frantically running to the line of scrimmage because they thought that they got out of bounds too.
yeah,
Put him in a bad position, and of course he threw an interception to end the game. I mean, you're just chucking it up at that point. You're trying to do some schoolyard stuff and seeing if
yeah,
it works out.
for sure, for sure. Let's talk about Colby Young real quick.
Wow.
I not even kidding. I had to Google who he was after he caught his touchdown. I saw someone on Twitter say his name. I'm like, who's this young guy? Um, so I didn't even know that he was on a roster before he caught that touchdown. He looked good though,
Yeah.
and
Hey,
he's
I remember
tall.
the name. I remember the name. I don't know a ton about him personally, but again, that's a product of like the hype machine. If he doesn't
Yeah,
really get a lot talked about him, then we're not going to hear a lot about him.
yeah,
And he comes in and makes that amazing catch where he got the toe in,
yeah,
and I sat there and I was like, "You've got to go right back to him. You got to go right back
yep,
to him."
yep,
I think it was Stevo. He does the 365 Canes info. Stevo. He does all the
yeah,
breakdowns, and he literally said right at that moment in time, he was like, "You got to go back to Colby Young right there. You
yeah,
got to." And they went, "Hey, it paid off."
yeah. And
So
big body dude. I looked up his bio on the school website. It says he's like 6'4", 6'5", over 200 pounds. So hopefully we see more from him, man. I think we're at the point with our wide receivers room that even catching 3 balls on one drive should get you a legitimate look. Like we're that bad at wide receiver. So hopefully we see more Colby Young next week.
it really has been tragic. And I posted about it last week. I was like, I'm
Yeah,
tired of seeing these green tree practice warriors out on the field.
yeah,
You guys are, if you want to tell me the guy shuts it down in practice and lifts the most weights or whatever the case may be, or he screams the loudest when he makes a tackle in practice, I don't know. If
yeah,
that's what you want to tell me, then that's what I'm being told, I guess. But
yeah.
there's just a difference when we see guys in the game. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we saw much of Tay either, Avante Williams. I don't think we saw much of him.
Yeah, it's dude, kind
Very
of.
surprising to me.
Yeah, I agree. It's the defense has kind of just been weird this year for a number of reasons. I mean, not seeing Tay on the field much throughout the year. I think it was the first 2 games. Like, I think we barely saw him at all. And then, James Williams, dude, does not look uh, like himself. through the first few games, and the scheme is terrible. I mean, I guess let's talk about the defense. Like, how are you feeling about the defense? What are we, 5 games into this now?
Yeah, it's I this is gonna sound so cliche, but it just comes down to crucial mistakes. It's the crucial
Yeah.
mistakes. It's not the fact that you missed a coverage and gave up a first down. It's not that. It's that this entirely blown coverage
Yeah.
where on one random play, a guy ends up butt naked, wide open, walks into the end zone
Yep.
like he owns the place. And you sit
Yeah.
there and you go, okay, well, if not for that wide open, butt naked touchdown in the first quarter,
Yep.
we only lost by 3, obviously. So that does, of course, make a difference in the game. Um, it just blew my mind. It's too many crucial mistakes. They do a lot of the little things fine, but one freak occurrence happens. It gets to a point where you got to stop calling them flukes and you got to start
Yeah.
saying that the defense just isn't playing well. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that one was weird and that one was weird and that one was weird and that one was weird. Well, maybe our defense is a little weird.
Yeah. I'm honestly kind of surprised. I just thought Kevin Steele would coach these guys up a little more. But I don't know. I don't want to come across with too much recency bias. Is our defense worse than last year, or is it the same? Because we've struggled on defense for about 2 years now. Last year, I was heavily preaching that, like, this is not. I mean, I didn't love our defensive scheme last year, but it was like we didn't really have the roster to support any scheme. Paper thin at linebacker. The corners had a history of struggling. Outside of Tyreek Stevenson, and man, we looked bad for most of the year last year, especially through the middle of the defense. Do you think that we're worse than last year or better on defense?
I don't want to say worse. I want to say like slight marginally better from like a technical standpoint.
Okay.
Manny always ran a defense that was going for the home run, always looking for the fumble, always looking for the interception. And that's okay. It works sometimes. But I think that, Cristobal wants to preach a philosophy of more technically sound football. We're going to do proper form tackling. You might not get an interception, but you will be bringing the guy down to the ground. So I think we're tackling better this year, but it comes down to just like the crucial plays where for some odd reason, we always say like, oh, you gave a big play. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. You might have been out of position. We're having plays where it seems to be that every player is out of position.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with that, but how is it happening? Like how is it happening that every single person is out of position? You were in the wrong place at the wrong time, all 11 of you.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I was hoping that our roster would, get better through improvement over a year, right? We have some dudes, like we all know that Avonte Williams is talented. We all know that Gil Frierson and James Williams and Cam Kinchins and Leonard Taylor are talented. We have some guys on the defensive line, JHH, Jafari Harvey. Like, I was kind of expecting that just by virtue of being here another year that we would see like tangible, significant improvement, right? Whereas I totally get what you're saying, and I agree with you that while there are things that I like better about this defense, I don't know that the improvement is much more than marginal.
Yeah, marginal.
Which is disappointing to me. When you're stacking some blue chips, because on defense is where we have the blue chip dudes. You'd hope that another year at school and maturation and hitting the weights that would help. But
yeah, you asked the question. You said, "Are we worse?" I think that and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to try to answer this question the right way." If you would have said, "Are they better?" and I would have been like, "Well, they're not worse."
Yeah, right.
I guess technically speaking,
Yeah.
they're not as bad. But I certainly wouldn't say better by any stretch of the imagination. Really, just different. Because those big plays aren't there, but we're still getting gashed, man. We're getting gashed, like giving up huge plays. I know there was like some people want to say, oh, like freak occurrence against Middle Tennessee with all those very long plays. I think they had like 3 that went for about 60 or 65. They had like 3 passes that went 55 plus, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And 2 of those went for touchdowns. And goes back to what I said earlier. At some point, you have to stop saying that those are flukes, and you got to start saying that maybe my defense isn't so good.
Yeah. Man.
And you mentioned Kevin Steele, and you really were kind of, the way he talks and the way he carries himself, his reputation. You were really expecting more of like a very hard nosed, great tackling. I'm happy with how they tackle. They miss a few that I'm like, you should have had that one, but they tackle much better than they were last year, and it's very hard to break those bad habits that have been part of the program for a couple of years now.
Yeah. So we're about 10 minutes in. I want to go for about another 20. But so right now, I want to get into on Kane's Twitter. There was kind of an argument during the game with some prominent people. So I want to get into, is the team overall, is it a Jimmy's and Joe's issue, or is it an X's and O's issue? Is it coaching, or is it the roster? And I know that this is a multi-layered topic, but let's dig into it, man. So let's start with just your knee-jerk reaction to that question, and then I guess we'll just strip this thing down as we go.
Yeah, I think knee-jerk reaction, you really want to say it's about the players. Like you really want to say that, because you sit there and you're talking about too many drop passes, too many plays where a wide receiver, like the pass was almost there, but he just overthrew him slightly. You want to say it's really a player issue, but man, like you said, we're going to strip it down, and there are some very, very questionable play calls as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It goes into the thing where, like, when the guys are put into a good position, they don't make the plays, but a lot of times they're not getting put into good positions anyway. So you're fighting an uphill battle on two fronts there.
Yeah, and I guess you could approach it from, are they out of position because they aren't practicing well? I mean, I guess you could put that on coaching, but I mean, the old adage, like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink, right? Like you can run good practices, but if people aren't learning in practice, like at what point? And I'm not saying that that's what is happening. I would have no idea. I'm just asking the question. Is it a case of our coaches aren't running their practices properly, or is it a case of the players aren't learning what they should be learning in practice, and it's their fault?
Yeah, I really struggle to think that it's the practices being run poorly. I truly believe that the practices are being run like military regiment, very firmly and smoothly organized, in a timely fashion, like in a timely, orderly fashion. I really believe that the practices are going well. The problem is that practice can be deceiving. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Practice players are going to be practice players, and gamers are gamers, man.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned about, I can't really speak on this because me too. When it comes to the Avante Williams not playing scenario, I don't know if there's something off the field. I don't know if there's something in the classroom. I'm not saying anything negative about him either, but there is something that's going on. Why are they not playing this kid? Because he is a stud. He is a baller.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I've felt that way about Gil Frierson for a year and a half now. And it's like, we have dudes, like we all know that Gil Frierson can play football. So, like, what's going on, and why is it that even when we are seeing him, it's kind of sporadic,
Yeah.
Like,
what's happening in practice that these coaches are able to, when they go into Saturday, in their own minds, they're able to justify, I'm not playing these guys because of whatever XYZ reasons they may have. What are those reasons? Because I'm not seeing it. If it's
Colby Young is a great example. I mean, I'm gonna qualify it by, I told you guys I never heard of him before today, but to come in, I mean,
you're not the guy watching him in practice every day, by the way.
He's 6
so
foot
sorry,
5.
I never heard of him. I'm a fan.
He's 6'5". He comes in, he makes 3 really big plays in a row at a position that we've desperately needed a spark, and he immediately gives you the spark the first time he has the opportunity. It starts to make you think, like, okay, what's going on here? Like, he has the body. He clearly is performing in a game. Like, how come this guy never even got a chance before today?
And also, to build off that, was that just like a right place, right time for him? Luckily, you made the most out of your moment and made a spectacular catch, because what if Van Dyke goes another direction? What if the throw's not there? You know what I'm saying? You missed your one opportunity, then we never see him again. And then he doesn't score that touchdown on the next play, or if it was 2 plays, I'm not sure. But he didn't score the touchdown. He wouldn't have scored the touchdown immediately thereafter.
Yeah. So I really, this is one of the weirdest seasons to me in recent memory for the Canes, just because I have I don't even know what to expect, and it's so weird because I'm with you that when it comes to practices, I mean, just going off the coach's track record, Mario we know is has that drill sergeant vibe. He's been successful, he's won New Year's Six games recently. Kevin Steele,
yeah.
dude, he is a career-long SEC defensive coordinator who's been successful at a number of different SEC schools.
Mm.
I have a hard time thinking yeah, he's a bum.
Yeah.
It's he's not a bum.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe his message is not right for this team, and that's a totally different thing. But he's not a bum. And I mean, I was kind of getting into it either last week or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago with Gaddis, in the sense that maybe we made a mistake by hiring another dude who wasn't running his own system. But at the very least, Gaddis has seen what a playoff team looks like up close.
Yeah. You would think. You would think, right? I was kind of letting them fly during the game, the tweets, and I did not have very many kind words for Gaddis. People are calling him Taninos. I had a couple harsher ones in mind. I'll keep those definitely to myself. But it just is blowing. It's blowing my mind, because you sit there and you go at a certain point, you really do have to take someone's resume into account, right? Hey, you are the assistant coach of the year at Michigan, which is not for nothing a tremendous program. They are a very good football program, and he wins the assistant coach of the year. And I'm sitting there going, okay, well, at worst, he regresses to the means and is a pretty good coach. You know what I mean? I'm not expecting him to be Broyles again.
Yeah.
But hey, if you could be maybe in the conversation, would be nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, offensive coordinator at Alabama, offensive coordinator at Michigan. And I know that I'm pretty sure at Alabama he was a co-offensive coordinator. So I don't think they are running his system. And then at Alabama, their offense hasn't changed at all, man. So I'm pretty sure that the buck probably stopped with Jim Harbaugh. And that makes sense. But
his cash is much larger, yeah.
Yeah, I hope in the future that Mario will learn from this. He's a CEO style coach, right? If you're going to be a CEO style coach, then you should only hire dudes that have a proven track record with autonomy on their side of the ball, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a mistake that we made with Rhett Lashley as well, in the sense that it was just he came from the Sonny Dykes thing, which TCU is 5-0 or 6-0 or whatever. Sonny Dykes is doing great.
Big win against Kansas today. Kansas was one of the few teams remaining that was still doing well in an undefeated capacity like that, and for TCU to steal one today, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I'm sure Lashley had a heavy influence at SMU, but at the end of the day, a guy like Sonny Dykes is going to want some level of control over his offense, right? That's what he does. So I hope that we can learn from this.
Plus the thing with Rhett, not to completely derail it, but he a little bit got exposed on, I don't know if it was Thursday or Friday. They played UCF and got smoked.
Yeah, and I liked Rhett. I thought he did a lot of good things here. I think it wasn't all good, but hopefully that's just something we can learn from. If you're a CEO style coach at the University of Miami, you should not be giving guys their first opportunity to, essentially coach an entire side of the ball.
Mm.
We don't have to do that.
And you're true. We really don't have to do that. And you were really, I've said, Miami fans saying, oh, it's different this year. It's different this year. It's different this year. Right. But I really did say, I was it really truly does feel different this year. It really actually does feel different this year. And here we are in 4 or 5 games in, and it feels like same old Miami. How does it happen? I can't even begin to explain. It's unbelievable. You were expecting a little bit more, I think, from, not to be crass about this, but you spent a lot of money. You know what I mean? Yeah, some of that. I know it's not like money equal good football, but like some of that is supposed to translate. You were 7-5 last year. You're looking like a 7-5-ish team this year right now. You spent a lot of money. Why are we not better than 7-5, 8-4, 9-3?
I think we're worse than 7-5 this year, man. I think this is a 6-6 year.
Yeah, you are. I would say you're not wrong to say that, given the current record of the team. And we have some tough ones ahead of us. I don't see us beating Clemson.
I don't even know about Florida State at this point, man.
Yeah, some people were saying that on the timeline too.
I know that's blasphemy, but I don't know. We are not a good football team.
I know I know that's blasphemy, but like the year that we won 52-10 over Florida State, that there were some Florida State fans before that one that were like, it's not really, we're not going to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing right here. Hey, Florida State is putting together a respectable season so far.
Yeah.
It's always and forever go Canes, but like, do I really think they're going to win that football game? Yeah. As of right now, I have some thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah, and
I don't feel great about it. I certainly don't feel confident.
Yeah, I've never been one of the fans that like I feel like I can take my fan hat off at least a little bit when I'm trying to give analysis, right? Like you said, it's always go Canes, always and forever, right? But at the same time, like when someone says, "Hey, are we going to beat Florida State?" I'm not going to make myself look like an idiot, and just be like, "Yeah, of course, man." It's like, well, probably not this year. I don't know. Like maybe.
Now watch me get off this call and say, fuck Florida State. Jordan Travis, 5 interceptions. Canes coming for that ass, boy. Of course. On Twitter.
That's a rivalry, of course, but it's like at the same time, people always criticize on Twitter, like, you're soft, man. Like this, you're a terrible fan. Turn in your fan card. It's like, dude, being realistic is not being a bad fan, like.
I don't know. I don't know if I have some bad news for those kinds of fans, but I don't know if I don't know if Miami's that program. I don't know if Miami's that kind of program. I think that it's very, very possible that we caught lightning in the bottle. Schnellenberger, really took it off. We got a good, got the championship out of that. Jimmy Johnson as well. Turned that into some positive momentum. I think what happened was that the school was just like, yeah, whatever, this little football thing. And they got dog shit lucky, and it turned into a dynasty they didn't expect. Yeah. And they thought they could just like recreate that just because you're Miami every year.
Yeah.
Not the way it goes.
Hopefully. And, this is kind of a thread that me and Gino have been toying with over the last few weeks, is that like everything that we did this offseason is more of a long view program building thing. Like, as Canes fans, we always fall to the off-season hype thing, So we're like, we're beating our chests over building this football facility. It's like, dude, have they even broke ground on it yet? Like, that's not going to win us any games this year.
Yeah.
Or like getting Dan Radakovich from Clemson, great move for infrastructure, absolutely. But the dude's not strapping on a helmet anytime soon, and he's not calling plays either. So, like, most of the things that we did this year are slow build infrastructure, like, just getting it ready for Mario to scale this thing, right? So, I am worried that you're right. I am also hopeful. A little bit of optimism in me left is just thinking like, maybe this was never going to be immediate. Again, I think we all fell to the idea of like easy schedule every single year. The ACC is a very, very winnable schedule, especially in the Coastal.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how I was. I was like, I don't know if there's more than 3 losses on this schedule, but I don't know.
But here we are.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. It's tough. So hopefully Mario has the goods and can build a culture. I think that he will have all the tools to do so. He'll have good facilities. He'll have money behind it. Obviously we're paying through the nose for everything that we're doing this year. Hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years that we can really make that money count.
And that's what you're like right there. We really do have to make the money count. It is a long-term plan, but in the meantime, you still have to find a way to, beat Middle Tennessee State.
Absolutely.
You still have to
You're
find a
so right.
way to beat. Excuse me, I'm going to probably mess this up. It's Bethune-Cookman, I think. You have to find a way to beat them by 1 million. Instead of 500,000 is not enough. You need to beat them by 1 million.
Yeah.
And that's that. Those are teams that you're just supposed to blow off the field just because you have better football players than they do. And everybody wanted to say, oh, well, they were a little vanilla with the play calling in the first couple games. Be that as it may, those are the kind of teams that you're supposed to be able to just run a halfback dive or like a little simple post, and then it just works because your players are stronger, faster, better. So you're really expecting those kind of things to really to take place. And I will say another thing too about the fans. I want to be patient, and I do think that there are some winnable games on the schedule.
Yeah.
Canes can possibly turn it around, but I'm really so tired of everybody saying this like one game at a time stuff. I'm so it's only one game. It's only one game. It's only one game. It's only one. Yeah, well, it's only one game that you lost to Middle Tennessee State. Yeah, it's only one game that your quarterback threw 400 yards, and I did. Van Dyke have 2 or 3 touchdowns, I think, but we still lost the game in the end. Not enough plays made. Eventually, you sit there and you go, well, you can only say it's just one game so many times before you've lost 4, 5, 6 games.
Yeah. Well, what's funny, man, is so on Fours Up podcast, a number of times in our off-season stuff, like leading up to this year, there was a number of times where I wanted to do a segment with Marsh where we were talking about like, what if Mario fails? Like, what will it look like if this season's a disaster? I did, dude. Like the culture on Kane's Twitter, I didn't think there was any space for that. Like, could you imagine 3 months ago if someone was like, "Hey, what happens if Mario's a disaster?"
Just falls on his face, yeah.
Yeah, people would have like. I mean, anytime I even hinted at it, people would just be like, turn in your fan card, get off Twitter, delete your account, that type of stuff.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that I remember this correctly, and because I thought this a little bit earlier, and I think that you, in the off season before the hiring happened, I think you were a Kiffin guy at first. Am I mistaken?
I was.
You were okay. Trained. I was looking at that game today and the last few games, and I sat there and hey, in Cristobal, I still do trust. I think he can make this happen. But I sat there and I was like, that's why some people were thinking maybe we should have Kiffin. That's why some people were thinking we should have Kiffin. Well, Mario's very strong with the fundamentals and like the technical aspects of football, making sure everybody's prepared, in shape, yada yada yada. But like Lane Kiffin throws 50-yard touchdowns every game. So you tell me,
Yeah, and so this was another kind of thread that I wanted to start today and dig into a little bit. I tweeted about it a little bit. It's very relevant to the Kiffin versus Mario thing in the sense that, Mario is kind of a culture guy, right? I've been kind of splitting coaches into the category of, are they a scheme guy or are they a culture guy, right? I'd call Nick Saban a culture guy. I'd call Kirby Smart a culture guy, maybe even Dabo. But then you get the USC guy. The new coach at USC.
Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley, Ryan Day, Josh Hoople at Tennessee. Like, those are scheme guys.
Yeah.
And I like kind of comparing and contrasting, like, what's the future of college football? What has a more immediate impact? Stuff like that. I think college football is going to the direction of scheme guys get it done. Because, like, they'll just beat you in chess every week. It doesn't really matter what they're working with. They can, like, Lincoln Riley can go to USC and he can beat you in chess every week and make the playoffs with a new team, or Josh Hoople, second year in Tennessee, he has it looking like 1997 over there. And, like, why can't we do that, But I think it's because Mario's not going to beat you in chess. Like, he's a disciplined guy. He's a culture guy. And I think that is maybe more rewarding when your team is built on culture, but I think it's way harder to do in this day and age.
I would agree with that, like what you just said there at the end, in this day and age. And I don't want to sound like an old man, like get off my lawn, but where you say like culture versus schematics, kids nowadays and kids coming up through the football system, the program, through the country, Pop Warner, middle school, high school, college, so on and so forth. they're more cerebral. There's a bigger focus on playing smart. There's not this focus on like, I'm going to run through a brick wall because I am a Miami Hurricane.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to go around the brick wall because running through a brick wall is stupid.
Yep. Exactly.
And they're just going to, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of these kids, they don't want to hear the rah-rah shishkumba, like, let's go just because we're the Canes, we're going to do it. They're going to be like, well, Miami has the best coaches, and therefore if it would be smart for me to go there. I think I tweeted about this a few days ago, and I was like, you really wonder why these kids go to Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, whatever, these South Florida kids, stay home and make the crib great. And I'm like, they want to. They probably do. They probably do want to be Miami Hurricanes, but they look at Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama every year, and they're like, why are these guys the only ones who have their shit together every year?
Yep.
So they don't care about the whole like pride, my culture. They're going to go to the place where they're like, they win all the time because they're the best at football. They're the smartest.
Yeah,
they win all the time.
It's a business decision, man. Like I know Canes fans, and this is more complex than I'm going to make it sound. A lot of people went after Earl Little senior and junior during the recruiting cycle because they're just like, he should be a Cane, all that stuff. And
you and I talked about this. I remember.
Yeah. And, Earl Little Sr. was even kind of brazen about it. He's like, no, I'm a dad. I'm going to send him to Alabama for these reasons,
Yeah.
And like, who am I to get mad at that? Like, one, I don't have kids, so I can't say I know how dads feel about their sons, right?
Mm-hmm.
But trying to put myself in that situation, it's like, I would choose what is best for my son's future, regardless of who my favorite team is or my alma mater.
My only response to the Earl Little kind of situation is when Earl Little was going through high school recruitment, Miami was what Alabama currently is. When he was going through recruitment, Miami was like 4 national championships over the previous 10 or 11 years or so like that. Miami was what Alabama is right now. So Earl Little did go to Miami. Maybe he wouldn't have if Miami wasn't good. Earl Little Jr. is going to Alabama. Maybe he wouldn't be going to Alabama if they weren't good. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's saying, oh, you should go to Miami just because it's Miami. I'm not saying I don't know Earl Little Sr. at all. He went to Miami, but he went to Miami when we were the U. Oh my God, crazy. Wow. Earl Little Jr. just making the same business decision that his dad made, really.
Yeah. And, I mean, maybe I'm missing something because I'm not from South Florida, but like, it's like the kids, the big name recruits, they're celebrities before they hit college.
Yes.
Like they're thinking business, they're thinking NFL, and I don't blame them. Like they have the exposure. Recruiting is so omnipresent in little league and high school football these days that like the path is laid out. Like of course these kids are thinking down the line, and they're like, what will put me in the best position to be in the NFL? And I think when you're watching the draft and you see Georgia send 5 kids in the first round, and you see Alabama send 5 kids in the first round, and you're watching TV every Sunday, and half the dudes in the NFL are from Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State, that it kind of becomes pretty clear.
Yeah. And their football factories. That's what it all comes down to. It's what you were saying about it being, smarter. It's really all about the development. They're getting development at these other programs. No shade. I like James Williams. I like his attitude, but we're talking about a 5-star kid who Georgia and don't give me that, he wasn't a take bullshit. He was certainly a take at Alabama, and he was certainly a take at Georgia. And he's come to Miami, and he's still a physical freak, and he still has great technical skills. He's very talented. But why do I feel like he's not quite ready for the NFL just yet? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if he was in year 2 in Bama or in year 2 at Georgia, I'd be like, Jesus Christ, this guy is a lunatic.
Or whatever.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I know. From Clemson a few years ago.
Yeah, and so James Williams is interesting, and because I don't know how to, like, I want to give some criticism, when I watch him play, because it's like, dude, you've been run over like 6 times this year.
Mm-hmm.
You've been out of position way too much. But you're right. He is a physical freak, and when he's on his A game, like he's one of the best players on the team pretty easily. So
Yeah. Oh, he's got it. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, like I'm not trying to say that he's not good, but it's just kind of the thing is like if he was playing for Alabama or Georgia, would he be getting run over so much?
yeah. You
I
wonder if
doubt
his
it.
technical skills would be a little bit more sound. Just
Yeah,
like random like little things, being in the right place at the right time. Some people would describe it as luck. I mean, if you're in the right place at the right time, like all the time,
yeah,
though, that's a skill. That's something that you might learn.
yeah,
And that's what they preach. I think it was Julio Jones that was doing an interview the
yeah,
other day, and he was talking about when you play at Bama, it's emphasis on being in the right place at the right time,
yep,
running things correctly. And at Miami, I don't know if they're just saying like, go out there and do a football.
yep,
Sometimes I wonder. I'm not saying that they're just teaching them bullshit all day, but
yeah,
sometimes you see the way that they come out there, and I'm like, did y'all know there was a
yeah,
game today? Or like, I don't know what's going on
yeah.
sometimes.
Well, did you have any thoughts that you want to bring up before we wrap up?
Um, all I can say is I can understand why Michigan was not pressed on losing Gaddis. His
Yeah,
you can say whatever you
yeah,
want about development and the practice because we're not at the practice, so we don't know that.
yeah,
But I do know certain situations on the football field. That's not the play you call, bro. That's not the
yeah,
play you call. That is just not the play you call. So Josh Gaddis, I'm very sorry. I hope that they can get it straightened out. But right now, patience is very, very thin
yeah,
with all of the Canes, not just myself. A lot of Canes, it's all over Twitter. I mean, you can see it,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, man. I don't know if we can afford to pay him $2 million to not coach for us. So please figure it out soon.
Yeah.
Please figure it out soon.
Yeah. It's clear that Tyler Van Dyke figured something out. He
Yep.
played a solid game today. He is going to have an interception on the stat sheet, but I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm not putting that on him. They
Yeah.
thought they were getting out of bounds. He's doing a chuck at the last minute, trying to just figure something out. Um, I just think that Miami. This is what Miami is now. I sat there and I was like, man, if I take off my Miami glasses, if I take off my Miami shades
Yeah.
here, I'm sitting there. I'm going. North Carolina's not a bad team, and you lost by 3 points, and it
Yeah.
came down to the last play of the game. That's not a terrible loss. And then I was like, maybe this is just who we are. We're not supposed to win just because we're Miami. It's not just the Canes. Oh, go Canes! Yeah, well, we're gonna beat UNC 60-10 now just because we're Miami. We are the team that's like, oh, you barely lost to UNC and it came down to the last minute. That's a good effort for you guys.
Yeah. Dude, I
Nice trying.
I am in no way saying you're wrong or disagreeing with you because I don't believe that. But it feels like you just dumped hand sanitizer on a cut. Like it's that type of sting. But I think it stings because it's just like I don't have anything to say to that.
Yeah,
Like what am I supposed to do? Like, no, you're wrong. Nope,
yeah.
you're not wrong.
It's just it gets to a point where you're like, wow, we lost a fluky game to Middle Tennessee State, and then I was like, or are we just the kind of team that sometimes loses to Middle Tennessee State? You know what I mean? Like, hey, App State's good enough
That's
to
nuts, man.
beat Texas A&M and then lose to some program you never heard of. Maybe
Yeah,
Miami's kind of like App State in that way, good enough to get up for the really big games, and they're going to play a competitive one, and it's going to be fun. Also bad enough to lose to bad teams.
yeah. And the critiques for Mario at Oregon was always that like he had a tendency to be a pants pooper,
Yeah,
like they won a Rose Bowl. That's one of my phrases that I've loved to use. But dude, losing to Utah twice last year, like I'm based in Utah. I see a ton of Utes games, and Kyle Whittingham is a famous pants pooper, and Mario did it worse twice
yeah.
in the same year. He out pooped his pants
Dude,
from
he did
Kyle.
a double deuce, man. That is a
Yeah.
quadruple deuce. How? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It really is unbelievable. But you were mentioning it a little bit earlier. Culture versus schematics. He thinks that he's gonna like rah motivation,
Yeah.
into the next level of energy. Where they're just gonna like open up this. I'm going past 100%. I'm not going 110%, and that's going to be the reason we win. He does believe that, and I have confidence in him. I just hope that he's right. I hope that he can really make
Yeah.
that happen. CEO type coach, as you said, though. You got to hire the right guys. You got to hire the right dudes.
Yeah. And I'm not sure he did with Gaddis. I mean, you said it best. Like Michigan was not crying when we took him.
Oh, and by the way, they beat Indiana 31-10 today, or something like that. They
Yeah.
they did okay. They did just fine.
Yeah, for sure. And it's frustrating, man. So I want to end with a question to you, just to rub salt in the wound for myself and everyone. True or false? We are 5-0 with Lane Kiffin as head coach.
Oh, false. I don't think we're 5-0 with Lane
Really?
as head coach. Yeah, I
What
don't
do you
think
think
so.
we'd be?
We'd probably be like, I think we'd be probably 3-2 or 4-1. Yeah, I think we'd probably be 4-1.
Okay.
Let me put it away. I'd say 4-1 since we don't really
Yeah.
ever have to find out the real answer. I don't think we lose to Middle Tennessee State.
Yeah, I think
we're 3-1 going into this game, and then toss up.
Yeah, I would say probably 4-1 or 5-0. To be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think Texas A&M is very good.
No.
I think if we had Lane Kiffin coaching TVD, and
why is A&M is dogs by 26 points or something like that tonight? Like, why are you a 26-point dog, man? That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what Alabama does to people. You know how it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, Petrie, thank you for hanging out today. We'll be back next week, and you'll be back next week, I hope.
Oh, no, hey, dude, I always tell you, anytime, please just let me know. Let me know.
Okay.
All right, brother. Hey, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.